Hu chazu. Go and see. Right? You can't really see if you don't go. That's how we'll start off.
You can't see if you don't go?
You can't really see. What are you going to see?
Wherever you are.
You see the same four walls every day? No, luchu. You have to actively be involved in serving Hashem. It's not just
passive.
It's actively. Luchu chazu. Get up, get off your butt, and go out and do something for Hashem. Really, that's what you have to do. You have to make preparations for Shabbos. You have to get up in the morning to put on talis and tefillin. You have to do a lot of different things. But do it. Do it. L'chu chazu. So now, this is the way this lesson starts off. This lesson was said to Reb Nosson, and I think there was one other person with the Rebbe. When the Rebbe was kind of forced to leave Breslov after Pesach in the last year of his life, it was 1810, there was a terrible fire in Breslov. It burned down most of the city. And Rabbi Nachman, his house was gone and other things like that, others. And then the next day, Rabbi Nachman got a message from Uman. They asked him to come and move to Uman. Right? Now, the Rebbe knew he wanted to be buried in Uman. 8 years earlier, when he moved from eastern Ukraine, Zlatopolia, where he lived then, to Breslov. He passed through Uman. Now, Uman in 1768 had a terrible Kiddush Hashem, a beautiful Kiddush Hashem, but it's a terrible thing. There was an uprising of Poles. There was then part of Poland. And there was an uprising, and they rebelled against the people. And Uman was a walled city, a protected city. So the Yidden from all around ran to Uman to be protected. And there was a guy, Zeleznik, who was the main leader of the city. And there was a guy, Ivan Gunter, who was the leader of the rebels. And he surrounded Uman, and the Yidden were in there, and they were praying, davening, whatever. They gathered in the shul, thousands of people, all over throughout the city. And Zeleznik made a deal with Gunter. He can come in, but just don't harm the people in the city, only the Jews. All right? So Gunter made a canopy, a chuppah, outside the shul. Anyone who converts to Christianity will live. Nobody walked out. So they went in, they killed altogether in 3 days. Gimel, Dalet, Hay, something like that, or Hevav Zion of Tammuz that year. So they killed over 20,000 Yidden. Killed them, just slaughtered them, right? And it was Kiddush Hashem. And they made what they called a kever achim, a common grave. And they buried all of them together. That area is where Rabbi Nachman is buried. He wanted to be buried. So when he passed through Uman in 1802 on his way to Breslov, he said, "Du is gut zu liegen. Here's a good place to be buried." He said that in 1802 on his way to Breslov. And he knew that he wanted to be buried in Breslov. He wanted to be buried in Uman. And He was preparing for it. He was very sick. He had tuberculosis. He suffered for 2.5 years, almost 3 years. And he was going. Anyway, Breslov had a tremendous fire right after Pesach. And the next day, Rabbi Nachman got the message from Uman, they want him to come. One of the things they sent him was a sefer called Yeh Levanon. The Yeh Levanon was written by a maskil, Naftali Hertz Weasel. Changed his name to Wesley, whatever, but anyway, that's who he was, a maskil. It was a commentary on Pirkei Avos, right? Commentary on Pirkei Avos. These maskilim, a lot of them were very learned, but they were apikosim, mamash apikosim, atheists. So 1802, when Rabbi Nachman passed through Uman, there were 3 leading maskilim of the movement. One was called Chaikel. He was the father-in-law, and he had 2 sons-in-law. One was called Hashber. He was he was really the leader of the maskilim. And a guy named Moshe Landau, which some say he was the son of the Noida Yehuda. But you never know what could happen to anybody. Nobody's guaranteed. So whatever the story is, these were 3 maskilim. So Chaikel went to visit Rabbi Nachman to see if there's anything with him. Is he a person? Is he smart? Is he whatever? And he came to Rabbi Nachman and he said to him, why did you come? Chaikel said, I heard there was a very great person who came here to the city, so I came to see him. So Rabbi Nachman said, well, across the street there's a leading general of the Russian army. He's the one you're supposed to go see. And he kind of dismissed him. Chaikel got very impressed. If he could do something like that, just turn around, he's not accepting anything. By the way, these maskilim were very powerful. They had a present from the king, a golden sword. They were very well known.
He's on Wikipedia. He's on Wikipedia, this guy you're talking about.
Yeah.
He's very well known.
So, whatever the case is, they were very powerful. And Reb Levi Yitzchak Barditchev was invited to be the Rav of Uman, and they refused him. Reb Yankov Shimshon of Shepetevka, also one of the great Talmidim of the Maggid of Mizrich, was invited to be the Rav of Uman, and they kicked him out too. These guys were no slouches, but Rabbi Nachman impressed them. They came to visit them, whatever. So they said to him, why don't you stay here in Uman? He said, when you'll send me the Sefer Yeh Levanon, then I'll move here. That day, after the fire in Breslov, they sent Rabbi Nachman the Sefer Yeh Levanon. So he went. He made arrangements to leave Breslov and go to Uman. In the travel, in the coach on the way to Uman, Rabbi Nachman gave over this lesson, this short lesson here about Reb Shimon ben Yochai. Okay? That's the background information. And we'll go into it a little bit later. L'chu chazu mefalus Hashem. Go and see the wonders of Hashem. Hiskalas niflo misoy gedulos hatana Likutey Reb Shimon ben Yochai. A tremendous revelation of the greatness of Reb Shimon ben Yochai. Right? Now the Rebbe starts off, it's a Gemara in Shabbos. Reb Shimon ben Yochai yivtiach shelo tishtakach Torah b'Yisrael al yodoi. Reb Shimon ben Yochai promised the Torah will not be forgotten from the Jewish people. through him. Now the words al yodoi are not in the Gemara, right? When the Sanhedrin gathered at Kerem B'Yavne, Omru, Asida Torah shetastakach mi Yisrael. They said the Torah will be forgotten from Israel, and the pasuk they bring that the Jews will gather and wander around in the marketplaces and everything, looking for the word of Hashem. Right? That's what Chazal said. Now you're talking here about the Sanhedrin, right? Just to give you who was there in that Sanhedrin, right? Kerem B'Yavne, Sanhedrin, the Gemara says in Rosh Hashanah, it had 10 exiles. It was in the yard of the Beis HaMikdash, then it moved a little bit outwards, then it moved a little bit further, then it moved up to the mountain, then it moved to different cities. It was in Yavne, then it went to Usha, then it went back to Yavne, then it went to Tveria, whatever. There were 10 different exiles. The one, when they were in Kerem B'Yavne, the leader of the Sanhedrin was Rabban Gamliel, right? Now, who were Rabban Gamliel's friends? Who were his peers? Leader of the Sanhedrin, the head of the Supreme Court, right? Who were his peers? Rebbe Eliezer, Hagodol, Rebbe Yeshua ben Chananya, right? Rebbe Loza ben Azariah, Rebbe Akiva. These were the leaders of Klal Yisrael, right? Reb Shimon ben Yochai was a student of Rebbe Akiva. He was in Sanhedrin. He was there, but he was a student, right? Like kind of a young fella. There's the professors, and there's the student, right? This is the student. All of the Rabbonim said, "Asida Torah shetastakach mi Yisrael." The Torah will be forgotten. These are the greatest minds that you find in the Gemara, right? And they said the Torah will be forgotten. V'yomer Reb Shimon ben Yochai shelo tishtakach, shenema ki lo yisishachem ch'pi zarei. Reb Shimon ben Yochai, a young student, so to speak, got up against all the Rabbanim, against all the Sanhedrin, and said, the Torah will not be forgotten from Yisrael. How do we know? Because the verse says, it's in Parshas Vayelech, Ki lo yisishachach mipi zarei. The Torah will not be forgotten from the Jews. Rabbanim, they brought a pasuk. The Jews will look around, wandering, looking for the Torah. And they also had a pasuk. Reb Shimon stood up against all the Chachamim of Sanhedrin, a young fella, so to speak. And he challenged them. He said, no, it won't be forgotten. Right? K'mavua b'zoya, like it says in the Zohar, b'hai chibura di'u sefer ha'zoya yifkim be'im gelusa. The Zohar says, it was Eliyahu HaNavi, he was together with Reb Shimon and a few other tzaddikim. And Eliyahu HaNavi said to Reb Shimon, your book, the Zohar, right, through the power of the Zohar, the Jews will exit the exile. They will be able to leave exile with the power of the Zohar HaKadosh. Okay? So Reb Shimon ben Yochai promised the Torah will not be forgotten, and Eliyahu HaNavi told him that with your Sefer the Zohar, that will be the keynote book to help the Torah, to help Klal Yisrael get out of Golus. All right? Beato. The Rebbe now says, what's going on here? Boy urei v'havin niflois nistorah shel Toraseinu ha'kedosha. Let us see the wonders, the hidden mysteries that are in the Torah. Ki al kein somach Reb Shimon ben Yochai atzmai hazeh ha'posuk. Because Reb Shimon ben Yochai said, what did he say? It won't be forgotten. Why? because he quoted a verse. Ki lo tishochach mipi zaro. Right? Ki be'emes, the truth is, the Rebbe says, you look closely, you see, b'zeh ha'posuk bi'atzmoi merumas v'nista soid hazeh. In that verse is hidden the fact that Reb Shimon will tell the Chazal that the Torah will not be forgotten. In that pasuk that he quoted, it will not be forgotten mipi zaroi, from his children, from his descendants, from the zaroi of Yochai, Shu Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai, al yodoi lo tishtakach haTorah miYisrael. Through him, the Torah will not be forgotten, which means that the power of the Zohar Kodesh will shine and illumine the Jewish nation until Mashiach comes. How do we know that from the verse? Ki soifei tevel shel zeh ha'posach ki lo yisishachach mipi zaroi hem osios yochai. The last letters of the word verse, it will not be forgotten from his descendants, right? Make up the word Yochai. So that from the descendant of Yochai, of Rabbi Yochai, that through him the Torah will not be forgotten. This is what the verse reveals. Ki lo yisishachach mipi zaroi. It will not be forgotten from his descendants. Who is mipi zaroi? Mipi zaroi daicha. From his descendants. Hainu mipi zaroi shazeh biasmei shu merumas v'nista b'zeh ha'posuk shu atanu yochoi. From the seed, the descendants of the Tana Yochoi, ayodoi aydizaro she Yochoi, shemerumas b'zeh ha'posuk b'soif v'tevis, through the children, the descendants of Rabbi Yochoi, shu Shimon ben Yochoi, ayodoi lo tishtakach haTorah, ki b'zeh yado yifkin min galusa kenam. Right? So now, first of all, who was Rabbi Yochai? The Zohar in a couple of places mentions Yochai Chavana, our friend Yochai. That's how they used to talk. They didn't say Reb, but they talk the friend. Yochai was, Rabbi Yochai was considered one of the Chabura of Reb Shimon, of Tzadikim, of Talmidei Chachamim.
Did Reb, in the Gemara, did Reb Shimon bar Yochai, does it say that Reb Shimon bar Yochai got up and said, Lo tishakach?
Yeah.
Okay.
Gemara in Shabbos, Kuflam and Chesam and Beis, you'll take a look there if you want, right? 138b, right? It's amazing. Okay? So Rabbi Yochai, right, it will not be forgotten because of the seed of Yochai, which is Reb Shimon. Right? Because with this Zoya, they will go out of exile. Just to add in, the Breslov Hasidim say, B'hai Chibura, with this volume, right? This Sefer, the Ihu Sefer HaZoya, which is the Sefer HaZoya, they will go out of exile, right? In the Zohar itself, if you take a look, it says, B'hai Chibura Diloch, your Sefer, they'll go out of the Zohar. It doesn't say the Ihu. It doesn't say the word the Ihu, right? And the Breslov Hasidim say, B'hai Chibura, with this book called Likutey Moharan, right, which is the Sefer HaZoya, because it explains a lot of different secrets from the Zohar, right? And it's comparable to that. Okay? So through the koyach of the Likutey Moharan, I'll come to it in a minute. Vadash shesoid Reb Shimon be'atzmoid, Reb Shimon himself, umerumas b'posach acher. He is alluded to in a different verse, Kida, no. Ki atana HaKodesh Reb Shimon, the Tana HaKodesh Reb Shimon bar Yochai, u'bechinas ir v'kadosh min shmaya nochis, Rosh Teva Shimon, v'chulu, v'achshav. Right? In the Chaim Moharan, where it's brought the story that Rabbi Nachman told this shiur over to Reb Nosson on the way to Uman, the last here it says just v'chulu. In the Chaim Moharan it says v'achshav. So now let's go into this a little bit. Tana HaKodesh Reb Shimon is called Ir, an angel, v'kadosh, a holy angel, min shmaya noches. He will descend from heaven. Where is that? The first letters make up, the initial letters make up the name Shimon. Right? That's where Reb Shimon is alluded to. What is this verse? Ir v'kadosh min shmaya noches. In the book of Daniel, you have that Nebuchadnezzar had a dream. Nebuchadnezzar was the what's the word for it? The paradigm of atheism. He set up idolatry in different places and whatnot. He took the tzitz. The tzitz was the breastplate, the head plate of the Kohen Gadol. It had the name of Hashem on it, Kodesh LaHashem, and he built an idol, and he put the tzitz in the idol, so that in its mouth, so that the idol should talk. Right? This is the Gemara in Sanhedrin, I believe it is, in Medrash. Right? And so he was like a very, very leader in atheism and idolatry. And Daniel, right, he wanted to prove to him that it's not so, it's not going to work. So Daniel climbed the ladder. It was a very tall idol. It was like 60 amos high, which is about 100 feet, whatever. And he climbed up the ladder, and he went and he kissed the idol. Not that he wanted to kiss the idol, but he took the tzitz out of the mouth of the idol, and it crumbled. Right? It fell down.
What fell down? The idol?
The idol, yeah. So that's Nebuchadnezzar, right? He had this dream that an angel that he planted, he had a beautiful garden and whatnot, and all of a sudden an angel came down. This is in the book of Daniel, right? An angel came down and uprooted, there was a big tree there that alluded to the king. The king is because he's the leader and everyone turns to him. And there's an angel that came down and uprooted the tree completely. Cut off the tree. Right? So that's Reb Shimon. Okay, so now let's kind of, first of all, why is this the prologue to Likutey Moharan? The first part of Likutey Moharan was printed during Rabbi Nachman's lifetime in 1808. Rabbi Nachman gave this lesson in 1810. Right? Why is this the prologue to the first part of Likutey Moharan? Right? Rabbi Nachman Tulchina was in a city once, and he needed a place to stay. He went to the Rav, and the Rav starts talking to him. Where do you live? I live in Tulchin. Where is that? Near Breslov, whatever. Oh, Breslov? So Reb Nachman saw that the Rav was impressed with Breslov. He said it in an honorable way, not a defamation, degrading name. So the Rav said, "Did you know Rabbi Nachman, Reb Nosson?" "I know Reb Nosson." He says, "So tell me, why is this piece the prologue to Likutey Moharan? Why? It was said much later, after the first volume was printed, right?" He says, Reb Nachman Tulchina said to him, "What do you have to say about it?" He was impressed. The Rav said, the reason is because Shimon Bar Yochai, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, adds up to a certain amount. I think it's 673. I'm not sure. I need to work it. It's the same gematria as Nachman ben Simcha. It shows you that Rabbi Nachman had the neshama of Reb Shimon bar Yochai. So we say this book, which is the Sefer HaZoyah, the Likutey, is because it's the same neshama. Other things, Rav Nachman brings the Sichos v'Sipurim and other Breslov Hasidim. In Chaim Moharan, Rabbi Nachman said there were 5 major tzaddikim that brought the Torah down to Yisrael. Moshe Rabbeinu brought the Torah down. From Moshe Rabbeinu to Reb Shimon ben Yochai, there was a certain system of learning. Reb Shimon ben Yochai was the first one who was given permission to reveal the Kabbalah. He was the first one. So that opens up a new realm in Torah. Okay? From Reb Shimon ben Yochai to the Arizal, there was the standard transmission of Torah. You had the Go'enim, you had Rashi and Tosfos, the Rambam, and so on and so forth. Until the Arizal, which is the first generation of the Achronim, the second generation. So that was something new. The Arizal revealed a whole system of Kabbalah which is not apparent in the Zohar. The Kabbalah was known. Rabbi Yosef Gedetila, the Ramban, they were all Mekubalim. They all had it. A lot of things are there, but it wasn't revealed. The Arizal revealed a whole new system in Kabbalah, which is what we have, the writings of the Ari today. Okay? From the Ari until the Baal Shem Tov, there were no new revelations. It was this regular transmission of Torah. The Baal Shem Tov revealed a whole new way in Torah, what Chasidus is and how you can now approach Hashem. He revealed it, brought it down to a level that even this common man in the street, without any knowledge, could also relate to Torah. And the 5th tzaddik, Rabbi Nachman says, is now me. Right? That's the V'achshav. Now there's Reb Shimon, now there's me, V'achshav. Right? Because it's the same kind of neshama. The transmission of Torah throughout the generations, right, came with Rabbi Nachman to reveal it, right? Now, this revelation, again, we're Breslov Hasidim. You won't find any other Hasidus that says things like this, right? But the fact remains that Rabbi Nachman speaks to Klal Yisrael, right? The Reform, conservative professors of Judaism throughout the world, they all study Rabbi Nachman, right? Now, they won't study so much of the other stuff, but why not? Because Rabbi Nachman has the message. Now, let's understand, Rabbi Nachman's message is not stam, a new revelation of Torah, because Rabbi Nachman said, everything I tell you, it's a whole old path, a very old path that I'm teaching you a new way. Because the fact is that all the things that you have in the Likutey Moharan and other Sfarim of Breslov, they quote Tanakh, they quote Mishnah, Gemara, Medrash, the Zohar, the Kabbalah. It's all there. But nobody brings it out down to earth so that everybody could understand it like Rabbi Nachman. It's a way of taking all the old path and packaging it in a way that I see now how it relates to me. Now, every sefer basically screams out Hashem Echad, but nobody screams it louder than Rabbi Nachman. Okay? So that's one thing that we have to understand. What's the Ve'achshav of Reb Shimon? Why now? Reb Shimon, the Erev Kaddish, he cut the tree, cut the king, cut Nebuchadnezzar, uproot him completely and whatnot. Let's take a little bit further look in this Torah. A little bit further look. You have Chazal, Sanhedrin, Rabbi Gamliel, Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Yeshua. I mean, these are the pillars of Shas, right? And Reb Shimon ben Yochai, who was also a pillar of Shas, not to the Chas v'Shalom, but he was a young kid, and he stood against him. Rabbi Nachman passed away at the age 38. Compared to the other Talmidim, the Balatanya, the Maggid of Mizrich, well, he wasn't alive then, but Reb Zusha, Reb Elimelech, you know, the Kozitz of Maggid, right, the Choizim B'Leblin, they were all much older than Rabbi Nachman, much older, right? And they had their paths in Hasidus, which were very good, valid paths, no question about it. But Rabbi Nachman stood up and he stood out amongst them, and he was a maverick. Someone completely new to the path of Hasidus, completely new. And at that time, Rabbi Nachman said, Ich kann nicht verleiden sehe Verbandevis. I can't tolerate their holidays, right? Because what happened, Reb Nosson explains, what happened was that Hasidus, the Baal Shem HaKodesh, his Talmidim, if you ever read stories about, I mean, the greatness of these tzaddikim is just immeasurable. You can't figure it out. But what happened? People started talking Hasidus, and they got together, and it was very cold area, Ukraine, right? Very cold, very not comfortable. So they get together in the tavern, and they take a drink to warm themselves up, and then they'd start speaking about the Baal Shem Tov. He says, as time went on, they spoke less about the Baal Shem Tov and more about the drinks, until it finally became their own, a Farbrengen, right? We don't want to go into that too much, right? But that's what it became, Farbrengens. And the Hasidus, so now the main thing was the drink. Wherever you go in Hasidus, there's a drink. Wherever you go, doesn't matter. There's always a drink, there's always a brumfen, there's always, right? Rabbi Nachman said, I can't tolerate these holidays, these get-togethers. I can't stand it. You came to Rabbi Nachman, you spoke either about Yireh Shamayim, learning Torah, davening, doing mitzvahs. That was all Rabbi Nachman spoke about. People came to him asking him for children. He said, what are you coming to me for Gashmias for? What are you coming to me for materialism? Right? Rabbi Nachman kept spirituality on top, right? And there was Rabbi Beryl Wine. You ever hear Rabbi Beryl Wine? Right? Good man, right? So he quotes me, my book, Crossing the Narrow Bridge. But he said publicly, I mean, I write there that when was the last time you heard a bocher go to the Rosh Yeshiva and say, I don't feel my davening? Or the learning is good, but somehow I'm missing something. It's not entering me. When did you hear a bocher claim, I don't feel geschmack when I hold the lulav and esrog? I don't feel the geschmack in the mitzvahs. When did you ever hear that? Right? Beryl Wine said this on a tape, publicly, whatever, right? but it's from my book, Crossing the Narrow Bridge. But whatever the case is, you don't see that today. People go to a Rebbe, I need a shidduch for I need a refuah, I need parnosa, right? Where do you see the people running? I don't have Yirah Shamayim. In Breslov, that's all you hear. That's all you hear. In Breslov, they don't have money, so they're not going to ask you about money. Right? Shidduchim, everyone's got to make one, so they make one, whatever. Don't ask me how they do it, but they do it. Right? And, Shalom Bayis, Refuahs, that's all they come for. It doesn't happen in Breslov. Rabbi Nachman stood up against the whole rabbinical hierarchy of his day. That's why they hated him. That's why they were choilik on him, because he didn't speak their language, right? And there you have, right? Chabad today is beginning to think a little bit about it, but the other Hasidus, if you don't have a Rebbe, the Hasidus is gone. So they made it a father and son business, right? The son became the Rebbe after the father. That's the way it was. The Reb Chaim Tzanza writes in one of his tshuvas, he says, this is something new that we heard, that you transfer your leadership to your son. Yeah, there we go. It's a father and son business, so to speak. That's what happens. They don't take someone outside. By Breslov, it never happened. Reb Nosson refused. Reb Nosson was a Talmud, and he refused the mantle of leadership. He refused it, right? Rabbi Nachman goes against the hierarchy of all standard rabbinical concepts. Okay, so now let's get into this a little bit more. Reb Shimon ben Yochai, the Gemara calls it, his friends were Reb Meir, Reb Yehuda, Reb Yossi. The Gemara calls that generation Dorer Shel Shmad, a generation of apostasy. Why? Because the Romans at that time strengthened their hold on Judaism, and they did whatever they could to destroy Judaism. That generation, he's mostly written about Reb Yehuda. He lived in Deresh, but it's that generation. Dover Shel Shmad. Reb Shimon ben Yochai revealed the Zoya because until that time, the Torah worked. In other words, you had all the idolatries in the first temple. We had all that stuff, the Vim, but the Torah HaKdosha was so powerful, it could have helped and directed anyone who wanted. That continued until the generation of the destruction of the temple. And afterwards was Reb Shimon's generation. At that time, the powerful forces against Judaism was so great, the Roman Empire, they were so powerful that they did whatever they could to destroy Judaism, and that's what happened with the generation of apostasy, when they started turning people to idolatry. Reb Shimon ben Yochai was given the permission to teach the Zoya, to teach the secrets of Torah, because from that time on, they're going to need the power of the hidden Torah to help direct us too. You're going to have a hidden power to come out, because no longer could the standard power help. The Maharal Prague writes about this. He states, he's the first one, I think, who writes this, that it was because it had to be revealed, especially because he was a generation just after the Ari. And he writes, why was the Kabbalah revealed in this generation by the Ari? Why? Because at that time it got even worse. Yeah, it was just after the Spanish Inquisition, right? The Crusades that went through was a few years earlier, a couple of centuries earlier. Then you had the Spanish Inquisition. You know, you don't join Christianity auto de fe. You know, we're going to burn you at the stake. And the cruelty that went against the Jews in those generations. So the Arizal came and revealed a higher level of Kabbalah. Not a higher level, I can't say that, but a deeper level. Made it more accessible to understand how the system works and whatnot. Afterwards, they had the Khmelnytsky massacres in Tovches, or 1648. Khmelnytsky was a Polish serf. Poland that time included the Ukraine. And he was a Polish serf on the eastern end of Poland. And he rose up against the Polish masters who owned the land. They owned the land, and the people who wanted to work the land were called serfs. They were slaves, right? He rose up, he massacred. There's different numbers in the history books, 100,000, 500,000, close to 1 million Jews, whatever. But he uprooted Jewry in Eastern Europe completely. He went from Eastern Poland, Eastern Ukraine, all the way to Prussia, to Germany, where that whole area, which was all Jewish, I mean, all the Jewish settlements from that time, and they were all uprooted. The Shach had to run away, Mogen Avram, they all lived through the Taz, they all lived through these Haras, the Tosis Yontif, and so on. And the Baal Shem Tov came to revive Judaism from that blow, because that basically destroyed a lot of Judaism in all Europe, right? And then came all the pogroms we mentioned earlier. Uman was destroyed by Gunther and whatnot, right? There were a lot of things, pogroms that were taking place at that time. Rabbi Nachman came to bring us salvation. Okay.
Because now it's not a matter of the murdering of the physical body. Now it's a precaution, right?
Yeah,
It's
so I'm coming to that.
So.
Okay, so now we go back to Nebuchadnezzar uprooting the idolatry. Nebuchadnezzar was an apostate. He was a koifer. He was an idolater, right? First-class idolater, if you want to call it that, right? The idea then of Shimon is alluded to as the holy angel because he helps uproot idolatry. Rabbi Nachman came about the generation after the Haskalah started. Rabbi Nachman was born 1772. The Haskalah started about 3-4 decades before that. And Rabbi Nachman came to uproot the Haskalah. We mentioned that the leading Haskalah were in Uman, and Rabbi Nachman went to them and he tried to ease them. These three maskilim we mentioned earlier, Heikel, Hirschberg, and Landau, they took an oath never to mention Hashem. Imagine that. Never to let the word Hashem go out of your mouth, right? And once Rabbi Nachman met with them, they started having thoughts of Hashem. And they had an inner battle, right? They don't believe, they're not going to mention, right? And they kept on thinking of Hashem. And Rabbi Nachman moved there in Iyar. Iyar, Sivan, Tammuz of Elul, and then came Rosh Hashanah. By Rosh Hashanah, Hirschberg, the leading maskil, he came to daven with Rabbi Nachman's minyan. And his servant, butler, whatever you want to call him, came to him and he asked him to come home so he should eat something. And Hirsch Ber said, I'm not going to eat before I hear the Tekiyos, like it says in Shulchan Aruch. Right? Shulchan Aruch says you don't eat before the Tekiyos. Today everyone makes Kiddush and whatnot, but we're a weaker generation. He didn't eat before Tekiyos. That was the change that happened to Hirsch Ber. Right? Now, there are two different opinions as to what happened to Hirsch Ber. In the Koich Ve'or, it's written that Hirsch Ber traveled to America. He had to. There were financial problems that came up, right? There were a number of maskilim that were caught up with financial manipulations where they had to flee where they were. Hirsch Ber was one of them. So he fled to America. And his son wrote back to Reb Nachman Tulchina that when he died, his last words were, the Rebbe. Right? Because when Rabbi Nachman passed away in 1810, right, Reb Nosson was crying and crying, and they said to him, the Maskilim, you're missing Rabbi Nachman? We're missing Rabbi Nachman. If Rabbi Nachman remained alive, he would have made us into kosher Jews, right? But he passed away. We don't have him. Reb Nosson used to speak to Hirsch Ber. Hirsch Ber once challenged him about Hashem, and Reb Nosson answered, you're asking me about Hashem? I saw Hashem. Re'isi es Hashem, like Yeshaya Hanavi, and Hirsch Ber believed him. He believed that Reb Nosson saw Hashem, and he probably did in his own way, but whatever. The point is that these guys were so far from Judaism, so far from anything that had, and they started coming. Rabbi Nachman, like Reb Shimon, who's going to cut down the idolatry of Nebuchadnezzar and all that, Rabbi Nachman was cutting down, stood up to the Maskilim, and he tried to bring Yiddishkeit to people. And you can see it today with Reform and Conservative who are against religion. A Reform guy once told me, everything is fine and good, I just don't know if he wants to believe in Hashem. A Reform rabbi, right? Everything is fine and good, but he doesn't know if he wants to believe in Hashem. I mean, this is, Hirsch Ber, Landau. But they study Rabbi Nachman. They read Rabbi Nachman's books. Right? Well, the point is, what Rabbi Nachman was young, like Reb Shimon ben Yochai, and he stood up to the rabbinical hierarchy. They say with blinders, that's what they call it, blinders on a horse, They were blinders, this is what we do, this is the way we act and whatnot. Rabbi Nachman was open to everything. I once had with a guy, arguing, you religious are so close-minded, we're open-minded, we're open to anything. I said, you got it wrong. You got it wrong. There's nobody more open-minded than a religious Jew. What are you talking about? I said, simple. You run into trouble, right? It happens. Business, problems, friendships, whatever. You run into trouble. The only thing you can do is figure out a solution according to what you know. You are not open for a solution that can come to you from left field. A religious Jew knows that when he has a problem, Hashem is completely open to everything. And the solutions that will come to you could come to you and take care of all your problems from nowhere. I am ready for anything that would happen, right? I'm open-minded. You cannot see that which is beyond your own ideas. So that's what Rabbi Nachman teaches us, right? Hashem is sending lesson 454. Hashem sends a person hints every single day how to be able to relate to Him, how to come close to Hashem. Are you aware of what's going on in your mind? The thoughts that come to you? Or are you focused on money or whatever it is that you're focused on? Right? Is that what it is? Or are you open to listening to something? A thought comes to you in the middle, a fleeting thought. You know, that's not a bad idea. Did you ever have that? But you're too busy to take note of it. That won't work. No. You got to be open to this. This is what Reb Shimon ben Yochai taught, the Zoya. There are hidden things going on in the world. Many, many hidden things. I mean, Lag BaOmer is coming, Reb Shimon. You can't imagine the greatness. And conclude, Reb Nosson brings...
How far can we be maximum from the side of Reb Shimon, because it's hard for me to climb the mountain, that it would be okay, consider that I was at the Tzion?
You have to want to be there, right? If you want to be there and you know you can't, for a reason I can't travel. I have prostate problems. I could be somewhere, any travel to Moharan during the year where I can stop anywhere and I can relieve myself, okay? But Lag BaOmer, you can't do that. And a regular trip to Moharan, 2.5 hours, whatever, pochot or yoter, right? Lag BaOmer, it's a 5-hour trip each way. I can't do that. So I stopped a few years ago.
But the Rav goes,
I want to be.
goes to Uman, though.
Huh?
The Rav goes to Uman.
Not for Lag BaOmer.
No.
No, but I'm saying, if I make it to Miron and I get on the bottom of the mountain,
It's good. It's good. If you can do that. Right? If you can do
consider
that.
that I made it to a Tzion.
Yeah. Because Reb Shimon, I'm about to say that now from Likutey Halachos, Hechsher Kelim Halacha Dalet. The Pasuk says in Yeshaya, what time is it? Oh, just in time. In Yeshaya, HaTzadik Ovad, the Tzadik is lost, Ve'enish Sam Alev, nobody takes to heart what happened here. V'anshe Chesed Ne'asofim Be'ein Maven, and people who do Chesed are gathered unto Hashem. Ki mipnei hara ne'asav HaTzadik. The Pasuk answers, because of the evil that's coming, the Tzadik passes away. So you'll see, in the Chavetz Chaim, in the 30s, there were a number of tzaddikim that passed away in short form, right? Because Hitler was rising, right? So Reb Nosson asks, right, what is the big simcha of Lag BaOmer? What is the big simcha? Reb Shimon passed away. He was revealing the secrets of Torah, and he passed away. What's the great joy of Lag BaOmer? Right? The answers. A tzaddik always tries to mitigate the decrees against Am Yisrael. Always. During his lifetime, he works very hard on that. Right? There was once a story, I don't remember the exact details, but the Maggid of Mezrich had passed away, and a decree came out, and they went to his tziyun, and he said, Rebbe, during your lifetime you worked to mitigate this degree, but now it's coming up again. Do something, right? And he was answered by the Maggid from Shemayim. He said, during my lifetime I saw that it was bad for the Jews, so I tried to mitigate it. Now I don't see any bad. I see that the decree is coming for the good, to help Klal Yisrael. So I don't see any bad. So Reb Nachman says that there's evil that has to come to the world. Gzeros, dinim, judgments, like October 7th and whatnot. Things like this are coming to the world. The tzaddik, during his lifetime, when he's in a material body, can only go so far. So the tzaddik is taken from the world before the evil comes, so that he can work where he's a spiritual being, and he doesn't have the limitations of the physical limitations to hold him back. He's much more powerful over there.
To what? To mitigate the degrees?
To mitigate the degrees.
And this is also not just degrees that cut the Klal Israel, it's also personal.
Personal everything. So the power of a tzaddik is spiritual, and therefore it's much greater. And therefore, if you're at the bottom of the hill, it's okay. All right? Hashem should help. We should have the schus of Shimon ben Yochai with us all the time, and we should know it. We should know. We should do tshuva, come close to Hashem. Reb Shimon writes in the Zohar that les milsador talya ele b'tiyufta. This redemption only depends on tshuva. It's up to us, guys. We do our job, Hashem will do his.